Well, hello to all of you from around the world. I want to thank you for joining us for this edition of Soulivity Today. We're broadcasting live from our studio right here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and on KMET 1490 AM radio in Southern California. My name is Brian Westley Johnson, and whether you're at home, driving, or even at work, we are always glad you're here with us. We have such an amazing show for you today. But first, I need to welcome my co-host for today, Dr. Chanel DeGuzman, Executive Leadership Coach, author, and Soulivity Senior Contributor. And good morning to you.
Good morning, Brian. It's always great to be here with you.
Absolutely.
How are you?
Absolutely. I'm pretty fair for a square, as my grandmother used to say. Those old folks got those great sayings.
Oh, do they ever?
What have you been up to? What's been going on in your neck of the woods? I've been seeing all the wonderful posts of yours on social media.
Yeah, so I recently received an award from the National Association of Women Business Owner, Greater Detroit, for Words of Wisdom Award. And so we'll be having an award ceremony next month at the Detroit Club. So that'll be exciting. And, it's been a kind of a short week, meaning I think a lot of people maybe had President's Day off on Monday. I know my daughter had Monday and Tuesday off. So whenever she's not in school, things just kind of go easy. And we spent a lot of time together dress shopping. She's in this pageant. And so it's like a wedding. The biggest thing other than getting your venue and the date is the dress. And so we have definitely been putting in our time to make sure she has the perfect dress. So, and of course, that's all bonding time because, I'm not a shopper. So,
Right.
So this is all points. Oh, her and her dad every weekend. Every weekend, Brian. Yeah. So, but I didn't get that gene. And oh gosh. I'm like, bless you guys. I will stay right here. I'll be here when you get back. But this is something that she really enjoys, and of course, she only wants her mom to take her dress shopping. So it's a treat. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Okay. Well, make sure you post pictures of her when she's all dressed up and stuff. I know she's going to be looking fabulous. I mean, I just have no doubt.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome. I'm loving today's topic that we were just kind of talking about it offline, because I think when people think about their potential, it can get a bit confusing for them. I know this has been true for myself, where when I started this part of my journey a long time ago, I'm pretty sure when you started moving in, especially as an entrepreneur, right? Where it's hard. It's like, okay, I have these goals and objectives and that kind of thing, but does that encompass everything that I want to do and the power that I can bring to it, right? And so I thought that we would have this discussion today, you and me, about potential through the lens of 4 different aspects that I found, and 4 different thought leaders that are out there. Life is multifaceted, right? So achieving your full potential is probably done in the same way, where you take different channels to complete it, right? To bring it out of you, I should say. And so let's begin with this first thought from this. It's a quick clip, but it has so much in it, right, Chanel? From Brendan Bouchard, who's talking about a certain kind of mentality that we could call maybe just enough. So let's check this out.
Do you know why most people don't have performance edge or hunger? Because they're good at surviving. Because when you're good at surviving, why? Hey man, I got by. I paid the bills. It's just enough mentality. I'll do just enough to get by. Just enough not to get fired. Just enough for him to stay with me. Just enough. And people who are just enough people, they never break through that level of ambition and potential that they were given in life.
Ooh. Just enough. What do you think, Chanel? What are you thinking when you hear that?
Well, first of all, it's comfortable, right? We kind of get to go on cruise control. So maybe you got the degree, maybe you got the job, but it's kind of like doing what's on the plate. Now, I will say two things. Number one, I have been in survival mode. And so I'll tell you a little bit about that. And then two, I did start a position where I started my effort at 200%, which is way more than enough, right? And they never let me come down, they, meaning the employer, never let me come down below that 200% because I set the bar out the gate, like, bam, here I am. I'm making it happen. This is,
Right.
I'm doing it big. And so guess what? I get to keep doing it big, and that can be exhausting. So that's on the other side. But in the survival, in terms of just enough, yeah, sometimes we are, and especially the women that I work with, we haven't dealt with the unresolved trauma. And so in my case, I kept running and running and running from the trauma. This was all unconsciously as a survival mechanism that I didn't know I was doing as a child. And so then you keep going until you just run out of steam, essentially. And so sometimes just enough can also mean that you're running and you are not taking stock of, the essential things in terms of what's important. And you're just putting in just enough effort to get by.
Yeah.
And that's really not aligned to the things that are on the inside, the things that are central and important to you. It's just running without a direction, without purpose, without clarity. And so sometimes you do get stuck into that just enough mode as well, or it could be sort of to the max. And then you're also kind of sometimes can get stuck in that track as well.
Right. And again, in the next segment, we'll talk about something that's companion to this, which has to do with limitations. But when I hear this, I'm hearing that, listen, sometimes in societies, especially with some parents, they want to protect their children, right, from things that they actually need to experience, like failure, right? And so they put the box in place, and especially when kids hit adolescence, they're supposed to expand beyond those boundaries that were put in place to keep them safe by their parents, and start tripping a little bit, right? Because then
experiencing some failure.
So they learn how to kind of move past this. And I think that kids can sometimes learn how to get by where parents are, okay, that's really great and that kind of thing, but they're not pushing the boundaries of what can be possible in their lives. So, they'll take a safe degree in college. They'll move into a job that's safe, that makes enough money for them to be able to afford the standard that has been put forward by their parents and that kind of thing, while inside they may be, man, I'd really like to go travel and see the world, but that's never been something that has been important to my folks. So, or I'm not going to try to go after that promotion at the job. I'm not going to start a business. That's too risky, right? That might upset the apple cart and that kind of thing. And so they do all these things that are safe, but they're also just doing enough to get by. And that's just survival.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's just survival. And our lives can't just be about surviving. That's not living, nor is it thriving, where you wake up in the morning and you feel great every day. Right?
Yeah. I mean, we are definitely meant for expansion, right?
Yeah.
So if you believe in an unlimited, infinite God, you know that there's always new heights, there's always deeper depths to attain. And being able to tap into that richness of knowing that there is unlimited, because this is what the show is all about, is potential. There's unlimited
Right.
potential.
Right.
And we're only probably getting, you know, in some cases just enough where there's vast amounts. And we just have to be able to start to, you know, become more self-aware. And I know we're going to go through all of this, but it's really recognizing that there is so much more. You know, Brian,
Right.
they used to tell me when I was a young girl, you have everything inside of you to be successful. And
Wow.
it used to frustrate me so much because I never understood that. But now I know I can do everything because everything is already on the inside of me. So it's a matter of breaking out of survival mode if you're in
Right.
survival mode, so
Right.
that you can really get clear on what you want and then start to expand your life and your
Right.
circle and your network and
Yeah.
your resources,
Yeah.
your vision. And so I know we're going to get more into that, but there is so much more for you.
Yeah, you know, and I just want to put this fine point before we go to break here. With the just enough mentality, it's just not about your experience of things like material things, right? And because it's a two-way flow, right? You're also not welcoming into your life the
Yes.
fullness of love, the fullness
Yes.
of abundance, the fullness of peace, the fullness of joy, the fullness of all these things that make life, you know, really turn into a thriving and lively life. So just don't think that this is about a promotion, right?
Right.
Or a car or a house or a trip. This is way more than this. And because your potential is not just about how you show up, it's also about how you receive as well. So your potential, because
Very good point.
right, they're always on level with each other, right? So just
Yes.
wanted to mention that. So man, we're off to a great
Good.
start here. I'm loving this,
Yay.
loving this. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. But before we get to this break, I want to remind everybody that here in the United States, February celebrates the history of African Americans and their legacy, which is part of the fabric of this beautiful nation. Each day we air Soulivity Today, we're going to be putting on moments of Black history to commemorate these great American heroes. So enjoy this clip, and we'll be back with more Soulivity Today in just a few moments.
Do you know about all the contributions that people of color have made to our society? Without the hard work of these innovators, we wouldn't be where we are today. Put your knowledge to the test and see if you're familiar with any of these products that they've created. Happy Black History Month.
Does your home use a security system? Well, that was invented by Miss Marie Van Britten Brown. Do you know anyone that has had laser eye surgery? Miss Patricia Arabath was the inventor of that procedure. Our food today still needs to be preserved, and Mr. Lloyd Hall is the person that we have to thank for that. Almost everyone has a mailbox. Mr. Philip B. Downing is the inventor of the first mailbox. Do you know anyone that has a baby? Well, Mr. William H. Richardson invented the baby stroller. Have you seen a traffic light before? We owe that one to Mr. Garrett Morgan. If you're a sports person like me, you probably have a foldable bicycle. Mr. Isaac Johnson was the inventor. Almost everyone has one of these. The hairbrush was originally invented by Miss Lydia Newman. Have you ever seen a lawnmower before? Guess what? The lawnmower was invented by Mr. John Albert Burr. And how about this? We'd be walking around with wet clothes today if it wasn't for Mr. George T. Sampson.
Wow, that was cool, wasn't it? Have you used any of those inventions before? There are so many examples of Black entrepreneurs whose work is still being used today. These are just some of the Black people who have made the world what it is. Never forget that knowledge is power, and until next time, guys, take care.
Hi there, this is Brian with Soulivity.com. I want to share some exciting news about our new Aspire Academy by Soulivity. Now, you probably want to know what the Aspire Academy by Soulivity is. Well, it exclusively connects you with people around the globe and who share the intense desire to improve themselves and create a better life for themselves today. There's classes, there's workshops, there's live events, and even more exclusively just for you. You see, I wanted you to have a safe space where you could grow, you can learn, and it would empower you in all aspects of your life, including your mind, your body, and your soul. So how do you get started? Well, it is so easy. First of all, the best part, joining Aspire Academy is absolutely free. Just click on the Join Now button, sign up, and begin your journey. As a special part of this invitation to you, there are some free courses that are available for you to try from our amazing roster of coaches and collaborators. It's our way of saying thank you for all of your support and being with us along our journey of expansion. I hope you enjoy the Aspire Academy by Soulivity today. Start the process. Learn more about your passion, your purpose, and how to live a higher quality life. Hey, we're back here with more on Soulivity today, where we are discussing how each one of us can unlock our truest potential to create our best life today. Back with us is Dr. Chanel DeGuzman, author and executive leadership coach. This is such a good conversation. I'm loving this already. This next thought about this whole potential thing comes from a widely known name. Comes from Steve Harvey, comedian, entrepreneur, entertainer.
Let me teach you something. How many of you have a dog? How many of you have ever had a dog that had a flea on him? That's everybody. You ever seen a flea? One of the smallest insects, really small, one of the smallest insects. But for his height and size, and flea has the highest vertical leap in nature for an insect. A flea can jump, has a 36-inch vertical. A flea, man, can come 36 inches off the ground. His vertical is 36. The average person can't do that. But a flea can jump 36 inches off the ground. If you capture the flea and you put him in a mayonnaise jar and you put the lid on it, the flea know one thing. I got a 36-inch vertical. So here he go. He start jumping, but he gonna hit himself on that lid because he got that lid on it. But after a while, after getting knocked down so many times, the flea makes an adjustment. So now the flea only jumps just to where he don't get knocked back down. He got 36 vertical, but since this lid is on, his environment got him now jumping nowhere near what he can. Capture some more fleas and put them in there. They got 36 verticals, but then they start jumping. They find out they keep getting knocked down. They start doing what the other fleas is doing. Next thing you know, I got a jar full of fleas in there, ain't even using a 36-inch vertical because they got a lid on the jar. Them fleas have babies. Them babies is born into the conditions of the environment. So now guess what? The flea is born with a 36-inch vertical, but because he see his mama and daddy and all his cousins and friends jumping just barely to the roof, you know what he do? He duplicates that behavior. The flea never reaches his potential. Until you take the top off of your mayonnaise jar, you're gonna duplicate your surroundings.
All right, Mr. Harvey. You know, he makes a point in his own way around this stuff, right? I take this as us becoming aware of and moving beyond our self-imposed limitations, right?
Yeah.
I can't do this because of that. I can't do this because of that, right? And we're not talking about systematic racism and discrimination. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the lid that we're putting on ourselves in terms of experiencing the fullness of life, right, Chanel? I mean, how many times have we heard people say things like, oh, I'll never have a man like that who takes care of me and loves me. Or I'll never find a woman who, you know, really sees me. I mean, this is all related. It's all about your potential, right? To experience all these things. What were you thinking when you heard Steve talk about this?
You know, he hit on so many points, Brian. Number one, he talked about, you know, the limiting environment.
Right.
And it can be self-imposed, right? It can be the limits that you have taken in. So here's an example. When I was in high school, I wanted to become a teacher. And I had actually started teaching in my grandparents' basement at 9 years old. I may have shared that before. But
Wow.
because I felt like teachers didn't make enough money. Now, this was getting information from society, but teachers weren't making enough money. A lot of homework. They would say there are kids that are not well behaved. I'm going to use that way of saying it, and not cooperative parents. I'm going to say it that way. I actually changed my major from education to business because of the limitations that I put on my knowledge of the field. So I didn't go out and talk to teachers. I just heard about, basically from news and, you know, media, about what teachers are. Now, maybe if I would have followed that track, I would have been a superintendent. I would have gone on to, you know, be a U.S. Department of Education secretary. I don't know, but I did put the limit. I mean, I squelched that. I mean, I literally, from the time I declared my major going into college in, let's say, June, by September, I had changed it to business. Now I'm doing well for myself, but I did not. I did have a self-imposed limitation. And then the other thing he said is that our kids are born sometimes into that jar, that same environment that says you can only go so high. And that is very telling, right? In terms of how we have to expand, we have to take off the lid, because, and a lot of times with the women that I work with, their daughters are watching them.
Right.
And sometimes that's enough for the woman to make a change. But until they become self-aware, you're kind of keeping the same jar that you had on you, sometimes for your kids. And if that's not a wake-up call, I'm not really sure what is. And so those are some of the initial things that I took from that. That was very powerful.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, I love the fact that you brought this back to something that I've heard as you know, growing up, like, what example are you putting forth to your children, right? You know, and sometimes it's opposite sex kind of things. Like with men, what kind of example are you showing your daughter around, you know, the kind of man that she may be attracted to, right? Same with the mother to the son. What kind of son are you raising, right? And again, this is personal and professional, right?
Yes.
So if the parents are modeling a very healthy, expansive, you know, hey, we can, you know, we see no limits in our relationship in terms of experiencing love and prosperity, then the kids are going to mirror that, where there is no lid on the jar, right? And that we have to do the work to take that lid off the jar that has been taught to us, right? And a lot of times it's out of love. I mean, sometimes it's out of, hey, listen, I want you to be safe and this kind of thing. But that, again, that's just survival. That's not living.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that whole
yeah.
modeling piece, Brian, is just so significant, especially in the area of love, because, you know, I grew up in a single family home. And so, to be honest, you know, my mom, you know, she had several guy friends.
Yeah.
But she did tell me a different way of doing it. But what was modeled before me, I could have, you know, and to be honest, I did have a lot of guy friends in my life as well.
Hey.
But, you know, it, even if you're not trying to explicitly model, in the background, we see and we hear everything that is going on in the house. And so we really do have to be conscious of, you know, the language, the attitudes, the mindsets that we are living before our children, and especially our daughters, because our daughters pick up both from both sexes, right? Both man, the mom and the dad, if both parents are in the house, about how to treat the opposite sex. That's where we get our first lessons.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Loving this. Thank you for that, Chanel. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Listen, we're going to move on to our next segment, but we're going to take a break first. And so when we come back, we'll talk about, you know, this thought of, you know, we got habits. And sometimes our habits, bad habits, right? So we need to learn how to drop it. So we're going to take this break and we'll be back in 2 minutes with more of Soulivity Today.
Do you see me kneeling on this dual roller called Parasetter? It's actually comfortable because of this channel and the softness of the special foam. It feels like my kneecaps are being massaged. When I lie down, my spine is housed in this channel, while the convex rollers massage my muscles. They let go and lengthen. There's a traction effect from my head on the headrest and my mid-back from the rib wrap, which hugs me. When I start the breathing sequence, I feel calm because my cortisol levels are dropping. Lower cortisol means bye-bye constant hunger. Parasetter is 40 inches long and much more comfortable than old-style rollers, but it weighs only 10 ounces. Parasetter, just like Pilates was, is no longer an insider secret. Do yourself a favor. Reset your parasympathetic nervous system. Defeat stress. Lying, sitting, kneeling, or standing. This unique patented roller helps everyone.
Six years ago, when I started Soulivity, my vision was to support everyone in improving their life through the discovery of their passion and purpose, so they could become the best version of themselves, to battle fear and ignorance, and create a better world today. Get inspired to live your passion and purpose. Visit Soulivity.com now.
Hey, we're back with more here on Soulivity Today. We are discussing how each of us can unlock the true potential that exists in our lives so that we can create a best life today. And back with us is Dr. Chanel DeGuzman, who's an author and executive leadership coach. Chanel, there's this next piece that I love, which I think, like the old timers would say, it's about, dropping a bad habit, right?
Mm-hmm.
This thought comes from a person who I don't share a lot with in terms of his political views. But hey, there are a lot of times you see people who you may not agree with politically, but have a good thought around life and living. And this comes from Patrick Bet David. He's an Iranian American who lives in Florida. And he's talking about this. And it's really important. It's a really important aspect. So enjoy.
Everybody wants to know the key to success. How do I become successful? But in 1977, when Muhammad Ali was being interviewed by Phil Donahue, Phil asked him a question. He says, listen, what is the central part of your training? Is it running? Is it training? What is it? And Ali's answer shocked the entire audience. It was funny, it was comical, but he was telling 100% truth. This is what Ali says to Phil Donahue. He says, it's dodging the nightclubs and the parties and the girls. You want the truth? And being in bed by yourself at 9 o'clock at night, and if you can get by that, you'll make it. He says, and that's the truth. Now, I'll tell you the truth. Hitting the bags and jogging and vitamins won't. Dodging ladies is the main thing, especially when you're pretty like me. So rather than answering the question of what to do, he told you what not to do, right? I'm 24, 25 years old. I got big dreams, but I love playing poker. When I would finish my last appointment at 10 o'clock at night, Tuesday nights, I would go straight to Commerce at a 45-minute drive. I'd go to Commerce, I would play cards for 3 to 4 hours, and then I would come back by 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd get 3 hours of sleep, then I would go run my appointments on Wednesday morning, getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep. So how effective do you think I was on Wednesday? You think I had maybe a little bit of a shorter fuse? You think I could give my best to close or sell or explain my clients or build relationship? Or you think it was just kind of like, hey, let me just kind of give you what I want to give you? That was one of my distractions. The distractions prior to that was going to the nightclubs. The distractions prior to that was women. As much as I was looking for the keys to success, sometimes it was about what not to do, not going to the club, not going to the casino to play blackjack, not going and hanging out with your friends till 4 in the morning, not doing any of that stuff that was constant distraction from doing something big. So often, rather than looking for your to-do list, sometimes it's better to make a do not list, what not to do. Here's what I'm not doing. I told my friends, I'm not going to the club. I'm not going to the pool hall. I'm not going to the bar. I'm not going to Vegas. I'm not going to go hang out with another girlfriend of mine. I'm not going to do any of this stuff that gets in my way. Instead, I'm going to take that time and develop myself. And all of a sudden, you're going to wake up one day saying, how the hell am I competing with everybody that's best in my industry? It's because of what you didn't do, not necessarily what you did do.
Whereas I'm looking around for a white handkerchief so I could just, Patrick was bringing it. I mean, it is so true. Question to you. What time did you get up this morning?
6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. And what did you do after that?
So I started meditating before I got out of the bed and started praying. Mm-hmm. And then I started my routine.
Mm-hmm. 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 I was up at 4:45.
Yeah, I was going to say 6 o'clock is a little late for me. Today is our daughter's late day to go in. Yeah, normally it would be more like 5:15, but yeah, today was a little later. But yeah, early is right.
And so, what makes you get up that early? Why is that important for you?
Yeah, so really it's a habit. So that I have enough time to be still, to do my deep breathing or my conscious breathing, which is also part of my meditation practice. So having discipline every morning to do that, I can't just get out of bed and hit the ground running or check my text or check the email. I need that settling time so that I can sear in my vision. Like I do have a vision board. And so I try to look at that. I have it both on my phone and on paper, like a poster board, but it's so essential. But Brian, he's really talking about, and I really want to make sure we talk about this is, what are you giving up? It sounds like what he was really getting at is what are the habits that you are currently doing that you have to give up to go on to that big thing. And that it's not that the habits are always bad, but that they're taking time away from developing yourself to go on and do the bigger thing.
Absolutely.
And it may not seem like it's slowing you down, but if you're not where you want to be, and if your bank account is not in the amount that you desire, then this is one area that you might want to take a look at.
Right. And so I'm going to flip why I asked both of those questions.
Please.
If we were hanging out, me, you, and Gary and Sasha, we hanging out, right? And maybe it's not at a club. Maybe it's at a restaurant. right? And we're having a
Yeah.
wonderful meal. We're ordering a couple bottles of wine. And the next thing you know, we're not home until 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
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 Do you think either one of us could get up at 5?
No.
At 5 in
No,
the
don't,
morning?
Brian, don't forget the time that Sasha and I have to, take off the makeup.
Absolutely.
Please.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
let's
all
not
that,
forget
take
that.
the makeup off and all that kind of thing. And
So it's
and
now
so
2 o'clock. It's
it's
now
now
2
2
o'clock.
o'clock.
And even if I get up late at 6, that's only 4 hours.
Hours.
And like what he's saying, how can you be creative? How can you be on top of your game if you're only getting 4 hours? Now, I know
Absolutely.
you're not saying, we don't ever go out and enjoy ourselves, but
Right.
it's the small daily habits that you're doing or the activities that you're engaging in that's preventing you from being your best to go after that big dream.
Absolutely. And so listen, two things cannot exist in the same space at the same time. So you cannot keep this life up of partying and hanging out and all this kind of thing and have enough energy or place on top of that all the things that you need to do to bring out the fullness and richness of your life. It cannot happen.
Right.
So you have to make choices around what you're putting your energy into, because that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about what you're putting your energy into. And so it doesn't mean that you don't spend time with your loved one or partner. It doesn't mean that you're not spending time with your family and all that. But there's a way to do it, right? That enriches your life and keeps you moving forward in your life while you're making your other dreams come true, right? So it's all about time. I mean, if before, when you were younger, if you were hanging out till 3 or 4 in the morning, you can find time to make some stuff happen, right?
Right. And Brian, even with the time and that in that video, he emphasized clubs and partying, and Muhammad Ali emphasized girls, it could be, maybe it's on the basketball court. Maybe it's being a chess player. I guess it's whatever might be currently. It doesn't mean you can't go back to it, but there does need to be a space or sacrifice that you are giving up something in lieu of something else or in place of something else, at least until you get prepared or in the space of getting the thing that you say that you really want. There's got to be some kind of sacrifice. Like you said, the two things cannot occupy the same space
at the same time, right? Really quickly,
at
just
the same time.
Point, a point on this. So there was a woman who was a world-class musician and a pianist, and she wanted to manifest a new baby grand piano in her home. And she did the vision board, she did the affirmation, she did all, and it wasn't showing up. And so she asked a friend of hers who was this, manifestation life coach, hey, I need some help. I really want this. And it's so important to me. And I don't know why it's not showing up in this and that. So he went over to her house and he knocked on the door. She opened the door, and the door only went open about 12 to 14 inches. And he's like, okay. So he scrunched through the door, and what he looked around the house, there was all this junk in the house. She was a hoarder. And so immediately he understood why she was not getting and receiving what she wanted, right? Because something else was occupying the space that it would take for her to have it. So his first thing was, listen, you got to get rid of all this stuff. And so the day that she took out the last box of stuff and had opened up all this space in her home, she got a phone call from a friend of hers who was a pianist in an orchestra, and said, listen, I've got this great gig. I'm moving out to the West Coast, and I have this baby grand piano in my house. And I've got to get rid of it immediately. I don't have time to sell it. I know you've been looking for a baby grand piano. Would you like to take it? I'll even bring it to your house.
Wow.
And it was it was what she wanted. Not even,
Yes.
it was perfect. So you got, the energy is energy, right? And so you got to give up some things that are occupying that space so you can welcome in this new life, right? This new potential. While we're talking about this, one important aspect of all this that we haven't gotten to yet is fear.
Yes.
And there's this wonderful young lady who kind of talks about this in a short. Her name is Erica Kanishi, and she's talking about fear, and I just love it. So let's check this out.
Jeff Smith says that the number one reason why people never live up to their potential is due to fear. In the Stone Age era, fear was actually considered a good emotion to possess because at times that meant the difference between life and death. This DNA has transferred to our generation when in reality, there really is no need for that fear, at least for the most part. Danger is real, but fear is not. Fear generates more fear until it turns into complete terror. By learning to set some plans to counteract the fear in your gene, you can break the addiction to fear and develop more discipline and self-control.
So true, right? How many of us are still living in fear of our own success, right?
A lot. Brian, I got to also say, just on that last point that we were talking about, I want to acknowledge, and I know you would too, we know it's not always easy giving up things that are holding you back. We know that. So we don't want to just put it like a blanket. Oh, you can, give up this and give up that. We know that it is a process. And sometimes that's why you need some support. But the fear sometimes is the defeating element that seems elusive, but it really can be unpacked. You can get to the root of it, and you can also get clarity and put plans in place to overcome it. And sometimes you really do need to push through and walk through the fear, because until you attack it, until you come face to face, it can literally overtake you. Like she said, it can be terror. And so I don't know, do you want to keep talking about it, or do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, out of everything that we've talked about, right? From, the just enough mentality to, moving beyond our limitations to, learning what habits are actually holding us back. I think the bottom line of all that is fear, right? Where we stay in a just enough mentality because we're afraid that we're going to fail. And so why do it, right? Why have that experience? We have limitations in our lives because of the fact that we don't want to fail. We don't want to do things, right? I mean, so it's all connected. And so I think like you just said so eloquently, fear is there for us to move through, right? We've got to move through it, because on the other side of fear are the answers to a lot of questions that you may have about your life, as well as an expansion, right? I mean, I think a lot of times, again, we learn in our heads that pain is pain, right? Physical pain is equal to emotional pain. But the issue is that in expansion, there's always going to be some discomfort.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Always.
Yeah. Well, the thing that you were talking about, sometimes people are afraid to leave their comfort zone because there is an unknown, at least in your circle of friends, in that environment where, maybe you're like the big cheese in your circle. If you step out into a new circle that's unfamiliar, you don't have all your bearings, you're not the big cheese anymore, that can also be fearful. So going to a networking event where you don't know anyone and everybody else seems to be in the groove and it comes natural, you're out of your element, but it's only temporary for you to expand. You honestly develop a new comfort zone, and then as you're being stretched, and then you move up to a higher level. So it's always an evolution of getting higher and higher, but there's a little fear that you need to press through. And it's usually because you just haven't experienced, it's the unknown, and it's the pull, like those, the fleas in the jar, there's community in that jar.
Right.
Only going so high. Like we know we're only going so high. So let's just nestle in and, let us all, feel good here. But to somebody to unscrew that lid and break free, there's fear going out by yourself. And a lot of times leaders walk alone. I get that quote from Art Cartwright of Global Empowerment Ministries in Detroit, Michigan, who says leaders walk alone. And so sometimes that is fearful when you haven't done that. Like when I went to school for the first time in college, nobody in my immediate family had gone to college. I had to do that all by myself, right? So there's fear, but you can push through it. You can become empowered to go to that next level. You do have to face your fear and dismantle it. You just start to unpack it and see it for what it really is. Right.
What I found is that is so true that, when you decide that whatever it is, whatever your dream is that you're pursuing, that's your dream, and that you have to, again, that walk is the walk that you have to do alone. However, the universe, God is a mighty entity. And that as you move through that, you attract to yourself people who are doing the same in their own life. And you create a tribe, a powerful tribe of fellow cheerleaders who are like, you can do this, you got this, you can move forward, that you can even talk to about your fears, right? And that it just helps, and that it helps you move and do the work that you need to do to, again, create your best life today. And so, this is PhD level stuff, right? This is not, lower end, but the reward, oh my God, the reward of it is so much greater than anything that you experience in terms of failure or any pain or anything like that, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just so good. It's just so good.
Hey, Brian, the way you and I got connected, right? I was actually prospecting, because that's what I'm supposed to do every day. And I actually prospected Brian and reached out to him and said, hey, Brian, I see what you're doing. Tell me more. And he was like, well, this is what I do. Tell me what you do. And now look at us here connected as co-hosts together, being a co-host. So, sometimes you just have to step out and do the thing that's uncomfortable, and you never know what's waiting for you on the other side.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, in terms of waiting on the other side, you're a perfect person for people to come to and talk about this. And you, for a long time, have been offering these coaching sessions that are complimentary. And so can you tell people a little bit about this? And then I would just highly recommend people go call you and set up an appointment.
Yeah. A lot of times people are facing trepidation. So they think they've got enough to do something big, but there's still something that's holding them back. Whatever that thing is, we need to unpack it. We need to get to the root of it, because otherwise you're going to keep treading water and not getting the impact. So please reach out if you're in this position, and I'm happy to have a complimentary session with you so that we can really get to the root of what's holding you back. What is the fear? What is the trepidation? What are the limits that you're putting on yourself? so we can get you to the other side, to your big vision and your big dream.
Absolutely. Woo. I love it. I love it. And listen, you can call from anywhere on the planet. Dr. Chanel's phone number to call her is one area code 313-410-9909. That's international code 1 area code 313-410-9909. Also, just want to remind everybody about, hey, listen, there are some fantastic new and powerful stories at our Soulivity.com site, including a great story on 5 must-see natural wonders around the world that I think even I need to put on my bucket list for the future. And so go check that out at Soulivity.com. Chanel, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, good stuff, Brian.
Oh man,
as always,
isn't it good stuff? Oh,
good stuff. We gotta take the lid off that mayonnaise jar.
Mayonnaise jar, right? Miss Steve was talking some preaching today. I loved it. I love it. I can't wait for our next conversation together.
Absolutely.
You know, I know it's going to be good. So thank you again.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Listen, we want to thank you for joining us for this edition of Soulivity today. This is how we do it Monday through Friday right here on Soulivity TV, as well as on KMET 1490 AM radio in Southern California. Our live channel stream at 8 a.m. Eastern and KMET at 8 a.m. Pacific time. We just love doing this stuff. Oh man, just love it. Listen, just want to remind everyone that, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Soulivity Magazine, where you can watch all of these shows anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Also reminding you to follow us on social media, where we're available on all the social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X, and Threads. So listen, running out of time, but listen, keep on working that passion and purpose, and you're going to create your best life today. Bye for now.
Yeah.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.